All right, today we're going to tackle a powerful idea that really challenges one of the biggest beliefs we have in business, in tech, honestly, in just about everything. It's a myth that's so ingrained we almost never stop to question it. So, what is this myth? It's the idea that behind every single great product, there's a perfect plan. A flawless blueprint, a genius design document that somehow saw every problem coming before anyone even started building. It's a really comforting thought, isn't it? It suggests that if we just think hard enough, if we have enough meetings and cover enough whiteboards, we can figure it all out and get to the perfect solution right from the start. But here's the thing, that belief, it's pretty much wrong. The products that really truly succeed aren't born from some perfect plan. They are forged in a messy, sometimes chaotic process of trial, error, and constant change. So let's start by breaking this whole idea down. We're going to call it the myth of the blueprint. We'll explore why this idea of a perfect upfront plan is so appealing and, what happens when those plans slam into the real world. The reason we love the blueprint so much is that it promises us control. It gives us a feeling of certainty in a world that is anything but. It whispers to us that we can get rid of all the risk just by thinking harder, right at the beginning. We kind of fool ourselves into believing we can map out the entire journey before we've even taken a single step.
And this really highlights two totally different mindsets. On one side, you've got blueprint thinking. This is the belief that a product has to be designed for perfection right from day one. But on the other side, you have forge thinking. And this approach, it just assumes that the first version, and maybe the second and third, will be imperfect. It designs products with the absolute expectation that they will be rewritten, they will be refined, and they will get better because of real-world feedback.
This whole iterative process is, well, it's fundamental to how anything new gets made. Which brings us to our next section, the reality of invention. Because let's be honest, when you're creating something that has never existed before, there is no instruction manual. I mean, really think about what it means to invent something. By its very definition, if a blueprint for it already existed, you wouldn't be inventing. You'd just be assembling it, following instructions. Invention is the messy process of discovering the blueprint as you go. Take the Wright brothers. We have this image in our heads that they just sat down, designed the perfect airplane on paper, and then voila, they built it. But their real story was a relentless cycle of experimentation. It was messy. They built their own wind tunnels. They tested countless wing shapes. They literally crashed gliders over and over again just to find the flaws. Every single failure taught them something critical that they then fed back into the next design. They weren't following a blueprint. They were working in the forge. And this brings us to a really common problem, a professional hazard that stops teams from embracing this kind of messy, iterative process. It's something we're going to call the architect's trap. So, does any of this sound familiar to you? The architect's trap is what happens when we get so obsessed with creating the perfect plan on paper that we put off actually making contact with reality for as long as possible. It leads to those endless design meetings, a paralyzing fear of releasing anything that isn't finished, and this obsession with finding the right way before we even know what the real problems are. You end up trying to optimize for a world that you've only imagined. And this quote just flips the whole goal of planning on its head. A good plan isn't designed to be perfect. It's designed to be flexible. The best architects, the best planners, they create plans that are cheap to change, making it easy to adapt when, not if, but when, we discover we got something wrong. They design for iteration, not perfection. Because if you don't design for change, oh boy, you are in for a rough ride. And that brings us to what happens when you finally do leave the drawing board, when reality hits back. See, in any complex project, you are eventually, inevitably, going to run into what are called hard stops. These are these brutal, unforeseen problems that were completely invisible during the planning phase, and they can bring your entire project to a screeching halt the moment you start building. And we're not talking about some weird, exotic problems here. No. This is the everyday stuff of making things. It's the database query that seemed totally fine on your laptop but just buckles under real user traffic. It's that third-party service you depend on that has a rate limit you never knew about. It's a last-minute legal rule that forces a complete redesign. These hard stops, they are gonna happen. And this is where the economics of it all become crystal clear. If you followed that rigid blueprint model where everything is tightly coupled together and assumed to be permanent, a hard stop is a total catastrophe. The cost of a rewrite is just enormous. But
If you've been using forge thinking, if you designed your system to be changed from the beginning, a hard stop isn't a disaster. It's just another piece of data. And the cost of adapting is dramatically, dramatically lower.
So how do we actually do this? How do we work this way? Our final section lays out the mindset you need for success. The way of the forge. The true engine of progress isn't some giant, perfect upfront plan. Nope, it's a simple, continuous loop. You think about a problem, you build a small potential solution, and then you observe how it actually behaves in the real world. That observation then feeds right back into your thinking, and the loop starts all over again. This loop, not the initial plan, is the real unit of progress. So this really requires a fundamental mental shift. You have to stop seeing your plan as some kind of sacred document, a set of instructions to be followed no matter what. Instead, you need to see it for what it actually is, a hypothesis. It's your best guess about how the world works, and the only way to know if you're right is to go out and test it.
Let me put it another way with this powerful quote. A plan you haven't tried is not a plan. It's a hypothesis. If your brilliant idea has never actually made contact with reality, it's just a theory. And the only value in that theory is in actually putting it to the test.
So that leaves us all with one final, and I think kind of provocative question. We all have plans, right? For a new product, maybe a career change, a personal project, whatever it is. The real question isn't how perfect that plan looks on paper. The real question is, how are you going to get it out of your head and into the world to see if it can survive? How will you test yours?